Welcome to the Diverse Minds podcast, where we give you the tips, tools, and techniques you need to be a mentally healthy and inclusive leader. Each week, you'll hear about a variety of topics linked to mental health, wellbeing, and diversity that will enhance both your professional practice and personal wellbeing. Welcome to the 301st episode of the award-winning Diverse Minds podcast. It's March and Women's History Month, and this year with the UN's theme of rights, justice, action for all, in capitals, women and girls. This theme calls for action to dismantle all barriers to equal justice, discriminatory laws, weak legal protections, and harmful practices and social norms that erode the rights of women and girls. So this week, I'm focusing on a completely different kind of book, The Alphabet of Happiness by female author Klaudia Mitura. Don't forget, the podcast is now fortnightly, but if you're missing weekly content, you have 6 years worth of episodes to listen to. And if you want my handy guide that lists the episodes with a clickable link, you can get it at the download link on my website, which is diverseminds.co.uk/downloads. So last episode, the 300th episode, I talked about 5 things I learned from the book Careless People, a cautionary tale of power, greed, and lost idealism. A memoir by Sarah Wynne Williams, published last year. It's a book that brings together the themes of sexism at work, global injustice, and calling things out. This episode, I want to focus on a practical book about joy and happiness, not the toxic positivity and not the manifestation of if we think it better, it will get better. Now, there might be elements to that, but if only that were true, we could stop wars and genocides by simply thinking positively. But we do really need a place and space for happiness and joy to fortify ourselves to keep going to make positive change. And if we think about justice and action for all women and girls, we do often need to take that time to recharge so we can get back in and get involved. And that's why I think this book is so important. I also think a lot of really big self-help books that top the charts are written by men. And I'm really pleased that this one is written by Klaudia. And I'm pleased to say that I know Klaudia and she has been on this podcast. So do check out episode 161, Happiness and Personal Development. And I have also been on her podcast, The Happiness Challenge, twice. So episode 43, which is all about identity and stories of identity and happiness. And on her episode 101, Hack 19, Give Yourself a Break with Gratitude. So those links are in the show notes, so do check that out. And Klaudia's story behind the podcast and her book is a very moving one. During lockdown, when several things were piling up, and I mean significant things, she wondered if she could just be happy for 5 minutes a day, and her podcast was born, and then years going forward, her book has been written. And I think this is such a familiar story for so many people. Can I just be happy for 2 minutes? How could I cultivate happiness? How could I cultivate a feeling of contentment? And as I said, this is far from the toxic positivity trap. And I really dislike this. And I talk about it more in episode 186, which is an episode for International Day of Happiness. I share my journey of doing 100 happy days, which is a photo challenge where you take a photo of something that brings you joy or happiness each day. And from doing that in 2022 to 2023, because I always do it 22nd of November to 1st of March, that's 100 days, takes you to, in theory, the starting point of a spring. And I've actually been doing it for 5 years now, and it has transformed a lot of things. It's very interesting. So if you want to know more about that, do check out that episode. And with everything going on in the world, I think it is something that we need to keep doing for our mental well-being. And the key thing about this book is the way it's laid out. It's so practical and useful. And according to the Office of National Statistics, in the year ending March 2023, reports of low happiness and high anxiety remained higher than pre-pandemic levels, with around 8.9% of people reporting low levels of happiness. More data from the ONS, Office of National Statistics in the UK, from early 2026 shows that the lack of happiness in daily life in the UK is characterised by a national mood slump, with over a quarter of adults reporting they are unhappier than they were 18 months prior. This stagnation in well-being is heavily influenced by financial pressures, chronic health issues, and a sense of post-pandemic stagnation. And in my life, I definitely notice this. People's illness levels are so high, and the lack of support, and I'm not trying to do any disservice to the NHS, but is also very high, and people are just really struggling. 88% of adults identify the cost of living as a top issue, and I think we've all experienced that, even those of us who wouldn't say that we are anywhere near not being able to meet our needs, but this is significant. with 35% of people citing it as the main cause of their unhappiness. Food and energy prices remain major strains, and I don't think that's going to get any better, causing 44% of people to report difficulties paying for them in early 2026. There is also significantly more anxiety amongst women, and if we think that women are generally still in the UK holding the main caring responsibilities for younger dependents and potentially older dependents, working sometimes 2 jobs, 3 jobs to hold all this together, the number of single female parents or single mothers is also higher. All of that is compounding. So I really hope you're enjoying the content of this podcast and want to keep up to date. If you are, then why not join my newsletter? When you join my mailing list, you can now choose the download you would like. Just go to diverseminds.co.uk/downloads and choose the resource that works best for you. So when I received a copy of this book, I have to say, I was really proud of Klaudia, of course, as a colleague, but I think this book is incredibly clever in the way that it weighs things out and it explains things. So at the beginning, it spends time defining happiness, what it means, and questioning conventional thinking around success and around the what if and the gap around happiness. I think it's also really brilliant, the thematic approaches that Klaudia outlines in this book. So mindset, relationships, learning, rituals, energy, and work. You can then dip into the themes, or you can read the book cover to cover, A to Z, as it were, in a way that works for you. And if you want to go by theme, you can also do that, which I think is really helpful. I think the A to Z works so well, and the letters stand for concepts and ideas that you may not necessarily link with happiness. So for me, I thought I for innovation was really interesting, and U for uncertainty. You think, well, uncertainty, how can we be happy in that? And yet it goes on to go into detail with this, and the book doesn't shy away from things or try to gloss over them. It is very realistic and practical. I also really like the fact that in each chapter linked to the theme and the letter is a solid, and I mean solid because Klaudia is a trained psychologist. There is research-based information with models you can absorb easily. Too often we see word soup or word salad with buzzwords thrown around, and you think, what does this actually mean? Particularly, I think, on certain blogs or on social media. No, this book is very, very well researched, and in fact, she has a whole section on references that goes from page 276 all the way to page 313. So again, you can dig in, you can get into the research, you can get into the references. And I think that's really brilliant because, it's evidence-based and it is thoroughly been researched. So, for example, in chapter 6 about freedom, the models you have are the circle of concern and influence and how to use it, and the references for that, and the power purpose model, and how to use these models on understanding your journey to developing your happiness signature in the theme of freedom and what freedom means and how you define that. Each chapter also has a section on food for thought with ideas and reflections to take, and actions, and an expert view drawn from Klaudia's podcast. And I think this is so clever what she's done. So you can link into it. And I am biased because I am one of the experts featured in chapter 3. So if you want to know more about that, then do check out the book, and you can connect with the podcast episode directly linked to the chapter for further information from the expert that Klaudia has had a conversation with to discover more. And I think this is such a great idea. And finally, each chapter has 5 points on how to take action, which you can journal on and enable yourself to take tangible action in your own time. And that's the other thing. The language isn't patronizing. It doesn't make you feel bad. It is very much optional, and it gives you lots of ideas that work for your life and where you are. An example of these actions I'm going to use is in the chapter for nature, reconnect with the natural world. So in this chapter, page 143, Klaudia talks about taking action, really great steps. So number 1, for example, track your time in nature every week. Are you spending at least 120 minutes a week in a green environment? What would you need to achieve that goal? Number 2, find a nature spot you haven't visited yet and plan a day trip to explore the different types of nature. Number 3, try forest bathing by visiting a local wood and engaging all your senses for a mindful walk. What colors and sounds do you notice? Number 4, set up a herb garden in your house and have fun watching it grow. And again, this is something that people can do on windowsills. This doesn't require lots of space, time, and money. Number 5, find soundtracks of nature sounds such as waves, birds, and rain, and have them in the background when falling asleep to help you relax. And that's also very accessible. So that's an example of one chapter. If you think you've got 26 chapters with 5 points, this gives you so many ways to take action and create habits for happiness. So I've really enjoyed this book, and I've really learnt a lot from it myself, and it's come in a very timely moment. And I would say that this book is an absolute must read. And It will enable you to take practical, easy steps towards your own happiness and joy. The way it's laid out is so accessible, and you can dip in and out of it or read it cover to cover, A to Z. It can teach you solid psychological models that are usable, research and evidence-based, and finding our happiness every day. Finding our happiness and everyday joy is a form of resistance. So do check out Claudia's website, thehappinesschallenge.co.uk. She's also available for speaking and other events. And also, I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget, I run workshop training events and keynotes for organizations about creating positive, happy, and equal workplaces. So if you want to find out more, please get in touch at Layla, Leyla, at diverseminds.co.uk. I really hope you've enjoyed today's shows and shows over the last 6 years. So if you have, leave me a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast from. And don't forget to watch my TEDx talk about the experience of navigating culture, race, and mental health in the workplace. It's something you can watch in your break, as it's just 12 minutes long. And the link is in the show notes, and I'll also give it to you here. It is bit.ly/TEDxWolves, WOLVESLO. So I really hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I do strongly say please check out the book, please check out Claudia's work, and do join me in April where we'll be starting a new theme. And until then, everyone, take care, bye for now, and stay safe.
Thanks for listening to the Diverse Minds podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you access your podcasts from. You can also connect with me on Facebook and LinkedIn. Tune into next week's episode of the podcast, where I'll bring you more insights on mental health and inclusion. Bye for now.